Welcome to Bot City. I'm Jet West. Today we're digging into the Fable 5 and Mythos 5 shutdown. The moment the US government hit a commercial language model with an export control order, forced a 3-week global outage, and quietly set a precedent that nobody in the industry seems to want to call by its right name. Stick with me. Anthropic's own post-mortem is the most interesting document in this story, and almost nobody is reading it that way. Anthropic tested 8 AI models, including GPT-5, 5 Kimi K2, 7 and its own Opus, going back 3 versions, and every single one of them could reproduce the exact exploit that the US government shut 2 of Anthropic's flagship models down for. The fix that ended the whole crisis was a single filter that blocks one prompt technique. That is the shape of the thing. Hold on to it, because Anthropic's own post-mortem is the most damning document in this entire story, and almost nobody is reading it that way. Here's what happened, cleanly. On the 9th of June, Anthropic ships 2 new models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5. Same underlying brain, different amounts of muzzle. Fable is the safeguarded one that goes out to everybody. Mythos is the raw capability one, the one Anthropic itself says can find and exploit software vulnerabilities more effectively than any other model, and all but the most skilled human security experts on the planet. That is a real sentence they published. That model is not for you. That model is for a small set of vetted partners under something called Project Glasswing. 3 days later, on the 12th, Amazon researchers surface a report that Fable 5 safeguards can be bypassed. That report reaches the government, and the Commerce Department does something that has, as far as anyone can tell, never been done to a commercial language model before. It issues an export control order, effective the same day, immediately. Now, what does an export control order on an LLM even mean? It means Anthropic has to cut off every foreign national on Earth from these 2 models. Inside the US, outside the US, doesn't matter. And here's the small operational detail that tells you everything about the state of this technology. Anthropic had, in its own words, no reliable way to verify nationality in real time. So they did the only thing they could do. They shut the models off for everyone on the entire planet, because the compliance mechanism the government demanded does not physically exist yet. Sit with that. Export controls were built for centrifuges and fighter jets, physical objects that cross physical borders. The government just pointed that same weapon at a piece of software that answers questions, and the software company's only available response was to unplug it globally, because there is no way to check the passport of a prompt. For 3 weeks, both models go dark. Anthropic trains a new targeted classifier, KZ, which is Commerce's technical verification body, the successor to the old AI Safety Institute, tests both the old safeguards and the new ones, and signs off. On the 26th, the government approves restored Mythos access for select US organizations. On the 30th, the controls lift. On the 1st of July, Fable 5 comes back globally. Crisis resolved. Everybody shakes hands. One outlet ran the whole affair under a headline calling it, and I want you to hear this word, a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. A same-day federal export control directive, a 3-week global outage of 2 frontier models, and a formal government sign-off loop before they could turn the lights back on. If that is a misunderstanding, I'd hate to see a disagreement. And here is where Anthropic's own report quietly detonates the official story. Because in the post-mortem, In their language, the behavior that triggered all of this was, quote, a borderline case. It, quote, only involved routine defensive cybersecurity work. Then they list the models they tested against the same vulnerability, their own Opus 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8, GPT 5.5, Kimi K2.7. All of them flag the same vulnerability ID. And the actual exploit demonstration, the scary part, the thing this whole shutdown was ostensibly about, reproduced by Haiku 4.5, Sonnet 4.6, 3 generations of Opus, 2 versions of GPT-5, and Kimi. The entire competitive field can do this. Every model they threw at it did the thing. So the government took 2 frontier models offline over a capability that every other frontier model already has sitting in the open right now, uncontrolled. And the remediation, the extraordinarily strong new defense in-depth stack, comes down to one classifier that catches the specific prompt technique in over 99% of cases. One filter for one trick that the whole industry can still do through a slightly different door. And that classifier is not free. Anthropic admits it. The over 99% block rate comes at the cost of flagging more benign coding and debugging requests. So the actual working developer, the one asking Fable 5 for legitimate security work, now eats more false rejections. That cost gets one sentence in the write-up and then vanishes. When Fable 5 does refuse you now, your request silently reroutes to the older Opus 4.8. You don't get told. You just quietly get a weaker model. Notice the corporate grammar doing the heavy lifting here. Anthropic says it built extraordinarily strong safeguards and doubled its safeguards headcount in the month before launch. That framing wants you to read a company heroically containing a dangerous capability. But their own capability data says the capability was routine and non-unique. Those two things cannot both be the headline. The severity language and the evidence are pointing in opposite directions, and the severity language is winning. Because severity is a better brand than we got flagged over something everyone else does too. The thing coverage is stepping right past is who found this. Amazon researchers surfaced the bypass. Amazon is an Anthropic investor. Amazon is a Glasswing partner. And now Amazon, along with Microsoft and Google, is co-authoring the shared jailbreak severity framework that comes out of this incident. So one of Anthropic's major backers surfaced the vulnerability that got its partner's model shut down for 3 weeks and then helped write the rules for how these things get judged going forward. That is not a scandal necessarily, but it is a set of commercial relationships that nobody is examining, and it should be examined because the people finding the problems and the people writing the standards are increasingly the same small circle. And here's the part that actually matters more than any of the drama. What just happened is the first visible case of a pre-release, post-incident government sign-off loop functioning as a de facto licensing regime for a frontier model. Casey tested the safeguards and cleared them before deployment resumed. Mythos 5, the powerful one, is now gated to U.S. government-approved organizations. That is licensing. We just don't call it that. You have Fable, the safeguarded model that gets to leave the country, and Mythos, the raw model that stays home behind a government-approved guest list. 2 models, 1 brain, and only one of them holds a passport. That tiered split is the whole story, and they got shipped as routine housekeeping. So back to that word, misunderstanding. Who benefits from calling a same-day export control shutdown a misunderstanding? Anthropic does. Because misunderstanding preserves the safety first brand. It says we are so responsible, we got briefly overcorrected and we collaborated our way out. The government benefits because misunderstanding says the oversight machinery works. We flexed, they complied, the system held. Everybody in the room has a reason to shrink this down to a clerical hiccup. But it wasn't a hiccup. It was a rehearsal. The state now knows it can point export control authority at a commercial model and force a global shutdown inside a single day. And the company on the other end has no technical way to comply except to pull the plug for everyone. The verification body now knows it can sit in the deployment loop and hold the switch. And the industry now knows the tiered access template works. Powerful model, US approved list, safe model, everyone else. The controls got lifted, the precedent did not. Fable 5 is back online for the whole planet, and the machinery that took it offline is still sitting right there, warm, tested, and waiting for the next borderline case that the entire field can already do. Thanks for spending this time with me on Bot City. There's a lot more to track as this space evolves, and we'll keep following it. I'm Jet West. Talk to you next time.
Grab news. Thomas.